is, if we want to talk about power, the first thing they should be talking about is the voting, how we go about voting, because you can say we're going to get X, Y, or Z in terms of relief right now, but the pressure is on Donald Trump to provide the relief. The one thing that that could easily be skirted by would be how you vote, and any relief that is coming to people in the near term is not going to be there in the long term if Donald Trump wins again.
And that's going to go straight to the Supreme Court. I mean, we don't even have a clear definition as Democrats what a favorable vote by mail system is. I mean, there are primaries right now through Matriarch. We're working with several candidates who have vote by mail, but in some cases the postage is paid for. Guess what? That favors the establishment. I mean, there's all these factors that we haven't really had a deep enough conversation about, and you have Republicans who are going to fight at every level because it only it's a waste of voter suppression. Let's talk about this. Their voter suppression.
Well, since we've brought it up, here is Donald Trump talking about vote by mail. This is let's talk about this. This is number 6. Where Donald Trump talks about all the different ways that people can cheat through mail-in ballots. Exactly. Now, in is it Oregon? They have all mail-in ballot election. Here is Donald Trump, who has been studying this apparently for a long time, just like with medicine.
It was 15 minutes after I put out an endorsement that they said we have to move the election. They didn't want to move the election before that. The other thing they wanted to do, which is crazy, at the end of the election, they wanted to have 1 week for proxies to come in or mail ballots. Now, mail ballots, they cheat, okay? People cheat. Mail ballots are a very dangerous thing for this country because they're cheaters. They go and collect them. They're fraudulent in many cases. You got to vote. And they should have voter ID, by the way. You want to really do it right. You have voter ID.
All right. So Donald Trump is talking about in Wisconsin, he's saying that they wanted an extra week. In fact, when the Supreme Court overturned the ruling by a circuit court that they could have that extra week and would count the ballots that were sent in, because we have people online, and we can play that video in a minute. We have people online in Wisconsin who were saying, I sent in my ballot 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Or I sent in my ballot. I sent in a request 3 weeks ago for a, mid-March for an absentee ballot. I never got it. And right. So the idea was that all those ballots are sent out, 9,000, 10,000 of them at least. People didn't know there wasn't going to be an election 6 weeks out. They didn't know that, 4 weeks out that you were going to have a situation where that we're going to have a pandemic and we can't go vote. And when the Supreme Court said, no, you cannot count ballots that come in after yesterday, they did not reverse the holding by the circuit court that you could announce the election results next week. So in other words, we're not going to know who won Wisconsin because they were not under any type of mandate to count the ballots. That part was remained in the order by the lower court. The Supreme Court just overturned the fact that you could count in ballots that come in later because of how late the ballots were sent out. That's what Donald Trump's talking about there. He's arguing that mail-in ballots, Donald Trump has just finished arguing that mail-in ballots are easily corruptible, and we shouldn't allow them at all because they're corruptible. And then he's asked, hey, wait a second, how do you vote? By someone in the White House press room. This is clip number 6. Unreal. No sound.
Yeah.
I think mail-in voting.
Really critical of mail-in voting, mail-in ballots for voting.
I think mail-in voting is horrible.
You voted by mail in Florida's election last month, didn't you?
Sure, I could vote by mail for that.
How do you reconcile
because I'm
that?
allowed to. Well, that's called out of state. You know why I voted? Because I happen to be in the White House and I won't be able to go to Florida and vote.
But let me just say,
well, there's a big difference between somebody that's out of state and does a ballot and everything's sealed, certified, and everything else. You see what you have to do with the certifications. And you get thousands and thousands of people sitting in somebody's living room signing ballots all over the place. No, I think that mail-in voting is a terrible thing. I think if you vote, you should go. And even the concept of early voting is not the greatest because a lot of things happen. But it's okay. But you should go and you should vote. I think you should go and you should vote. You look at what they do where they grab thousands of mail-in ballots and they dump it. I'll tell you what, and I don't have to tell you, you can look at the statistics. There's a lot of dishonesty going along with mail-in voting, mail-in ballots.
I think the biggest level of dishonesty we just saw, where the president said that there was a lot of problems. I love the idea, like, no, I can do it because I'm allowed to do it.
You can play back what I just said.
I want to make it clear that I stand with Donald Trump that, and this may be the first time I ever agree with him, you should only do mail-in ballots if you are allowed to do it. Period. And so otherwise, I don't think if you're not allowed to have a mail-in ballot, then I don't think that they should count. But I think the argument is we should allow people to have mail-in ballots because it works for him, but I'm out of state. And the mail knows that because this is going to be the central argument that we're going to hear. He is fully aware that if it's a mail-in ballot situation, he could lose. And they're going to desperately try and stop this. We know that that as generally speaking, as rates of ballots go up, Republicans lose. That has been the general understanding that people has. And he's very nervous about this happening. And he is basically getting ready for the Democrats to demand this. They better demand it because it would be another example of Democrats not ensuring that they get power, that they use their leverage to increase their power down the road.
I heard that Nancy Pelosi is considering delaying the election and giving Trump another 5 years in exchange for a extension of a housing credit tax.
Exactly. That's very possible.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
I mean, I just want to emphasize, like, I think we just legitimately don't know, obviously, who will win the general election. But like the extent to which it is seriously in question is a profound indictment because every marker should be Trump is out, period. Let me reiterate.
Any other
of course
candidate we would have that conversation with? I know what you're saying. The idea that it's even controversial as to a question as to whether he could lose in this environment is a function of this. Let's play this clip of Joe Biden.
Yes.
We played a clip yesterday of Joe Biden where he said, we got to follow the science about having the election in Wisconsin. And honestly, like it reminded me of when people would ask, like a guy like Huckabee, like, do you believe in global climate change? Well, I'm not a scientist. I mean, there's no difference between saying we've got to follow the scientists and I'm not a scientist. It's just a way of avoiding the question. And Biden also said, well, we also got to listen to the courts, right? Because I'm going to, as the presumptive nominee, yesterday he wasn't officially the presumptive nominee, today he is. I'm going to just say it's up to the courts. Well, apparently that's not what he really believed. Here is an interview with Chris Cuomo and Joe Biden. Did this come from this morning or last night?
I think it was yesterday.
Last night.
So this is after the election has happened. He has a different perspective on it.
Do you think you won in Wisconsin tonight? Ordinarily, I'd be hitting you over the head with all these exit polls and crosstabs and things that I know about people all the way down to what they like for lunch. We're not going to have anything until Monday. What's your gut?
No, we're not. Well, my gut is that we shouldn't have had the election in the first place. The in-person election. It should have been all mail ballots in. It should have been moved in the way that 5 other states have done it. It's the idea didn't have enough poll workers in over 100 and some polling places in Milwaukee.
There was not one piece of information that was new to him
right
from 24 hours earlier when he answered that question. He didn't bring up courts. He didn't bring up scientists. He didn't bring up any of that. I mean, seriously?
This is the feckless leadership that is frustrating Democrats right now. I mean, our show, I do a monologue. I did it last night. It's going to be out, I think, tomorrow or today, where I run through the countless times the Democrats have been feckless on things that just should not be debated. Whether it's sending people to the polls in Florida or Arizona and saying, listen to your governors that are Republican. I mean, this is
nuts.
I mean, those were beyond feckless. That was just,
you're right.
I mean, it is disgusting and unacceptable to tell people to vote in these conditions. And 2 poll workers, I believe, I mean, this was a couple of weeks ago in Florida, got the virus. And I think it's not just, it's feckless, but it's also like the classic thing that, that honestly everybody, I mean, just loathes, which is, okay, Joe, you're going to advocate, basically. You're not going to step in. You're not going to call out this travesty, which was at the end forced through by the Roberts Supreme Court.
Right.
But then you're going to cover your ass a little bit the next day by saying, like, hey, we probably shouldn't.
Right.
The footage outside of Wisconsin, the footage of people in those lines desperately trying to maintain the distancing in the rain. I mean, this is the type of stuff, like, we are in a failed state right now.
And by the way, it's only because, I mean, the only reason why Tom Perez and Joe Biden, who are lockstep in their messaging, wanted to keep it was because there's the voter suppression aspect in Wisconsin. But it would have been so egregious for them to make the case. This is a case that they're making with Obama and his Eric Holder efforts. I mean, this is really about Eric Holder. At the end of the day, when you pull back the curtain, this is about Eric Holder and his efforts in Wisconsin, which are commendable, but really should have been taken care of, I don't know, by not losing all these state legislatures under the Obama administration. And that's why, Tom Perez finally made this decision and Joe Biden made this decision. But it took an extraordinary amount of political pressure from the inside to get them to this point. And that's what's feckless, is that they can't make a decision based on morals. They have to have communications and committee meetings behind the scenes to see, whether or not it's going to offend a donor or an industry or a lobbyist, or it's going to help one of their cronies.
Well,
that's
and
really
I would even go for it. Like, forget, I mean, morals, yes, but like also, what kind of tin ear do you have?
Yeah.
Like, I just like, put aside morals for a moment. Right. What, how bad at this do you have to be to not know that, like, we knew a week ago they were going to do 5 polling places in Milwaukee where they normally have 180. How bad at this do you have to be to not know that if I don't come out against this today, tomorrow I'm going to have to be like, well, I was secretly against it. I mean,
but they rule by committee. That's ultimately what I'm saying is, unlike an Andrew Cuomo, who has the political instincts to make decisions on his own and listen to the ground and at least pretend to be progressive by labeling something, student loans for all or whatever the hell he does. They rule by committee. They have to go back and see, what does CAP say? What is Barack Obama going to say? They really do have these conversations behind the scenes before they say, okay, fine.
I'm going to say, read this fantastic Andrew Sullivan piece.
I just want to say, Joe said it was his gut that told him. The thing that I know about overeating is your gut doesn't know until 30 minutes after it's full that it's full. So
that's right. Chew your food slowly.
All those PB&Js and Fig Newtons are really getting
sort of reminds me.
Let's look at this clip.
I voted before I voted against it.
Let's look at this clip.
He doesn't remember saying that 2 days ago.
Let's look at this clip of Milwaukee voters who are lined up. This one is not even as disturbing because the rain is not pelting down on them. They're still in raincoats, but there are videos of and these things are going around the block. Yeah. You had pictures. There's pictures of elderly folks who are literally like a half a mile away from the voting booth in line. Think about this: 180 polling places reduced down to 5 in Milwaukee. Here is Shaquille Brewster from MSNBC having a conversation with voters at Riverside High School in Milwaukee, lined up, and they're just about to get into the door. They've obviously been out there for hours.
I'm really concerned about the people. and about our rights. And the Republicans.
People that can't even walk up to the polls and have to stand in line for 3 hours.